I was standing in my living room in Baltimore on a Sunday afternoon in March when my stepdaughter looked me dead in the eyes and said the words that would change everything between us. "You're not my real father, Thomas. You never were, and you never will be." The room went silent. My wife Denise froze with a coffee cup halfway to her lips. Jasmine's boyfriend shifted uncomfortably on the couch. And me? I just nodded slowly, walked to my home office, and came back with a banker's box I've been keeping for 18 years. Before we go any further, I need to know where you're watching this from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. And if you've ever felt unappreciated for everything you've sacrificed, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. This story is for you. My name is Thomas Edward Richardson. I'm 58 years old, and I've been a professor of mechanical engineering at Morgan State University for the past 23 years. I live in the Ashburton neighborhood of Baltimore, in a brick colonial I bought back in 2001 for $285,000. It's worth about $520,000 now, according to the last assessment. I mention these details because specificity matters when you're telling the truth. And everything I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. I met Denise Patterson in the fall of 1999 at a community fundraiser for the Enoch Pratt Free Library. She was a pharmaceutical sales representative for Merck, sharp as a tack, with a smile that could light up a room. She had a 6-year-old daughter named Jasmine from a previous relationship. The father, a man named Derek Collins, had been out of the picture since Jasmine was 2. According to Denise, he'd moved to Los Angeles to pursue a music career and sent exactly 3 child support checks in 4 years before disappearing completely. I didn't care. I was 33, never married, and I'd always wanted to be a father. When I looked at little Jasmine with her bright eyes and curious questions about how airplanes stayed in the sky, I saw a possibility. I saw a family. Denise and I dated for 2 years before I proposed on New Year's Eve, 2001. We were married that June at the Union Baptist Church on Druid Hill Avenue. Jasmine was my flower girl. She called me Mr. Thomas for the first year, then just Thomas for the next 2. And finally, when she was 10 years old, she asked if she could call me Dad. I still remember that moment. We were sitting in the kitchen of our new house, and she was doing homework at the table. She looked up at me with this shy expression and said, "All my friends think you're my real dad anyway. Can I just call you Dad?" I had to turn away and pretend I was looking for something in the refrigerator because my eyes were watering. Of course, she could call me Dad. I'd been her father in every way that mattered since she was 6 years old. The years went by like they do. I helped Jasmine with her science fair projects. I taught her how to ride a bike in Druid Hill Park. I sat through every parent-teacher conference, every dance recital, every volleyball game in her middle school. When she got her driver's license at 16, I was the one who took her to the MVA on North Avenue 3 times because she kept failing the parallel packing section. On the 4th try, she passed, and we celebrated at Miss Shirley's Cafe in Roland Park with chicken and waffles. Denise and I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but good. She traveled a lot for work, sometimes gone 3 or 4 days a week, covering her territory across Maryland and Delaware. I had a more stable schedule at the university, so I became the primary parent by default. I didn't mind. I loved being a father. I loved helping Jasmine navigate the world, teaching her to think critically, encouraging her dreams. When Jasmine was a junior at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, she started talking about college. She had good grades, a 3.7 GPA, strong SAT scores. She wanted to study business administration. We visited several schools, but when we toured Howard University in Washington, D.C., something clicked for her. She loved the campus, the history, the energy. She turned to me on the yard and said, "Dad, this is where I want to go." Howard wasn't cheap. In 2014, when Jasmine enrolled, The annual cost was about $23,760 for tuition alone, not including room, board, books, or fees. Over 4 years, we were looking at close to $140,000 just in tuition. With housing at the towers and meal plans, the total cost would be closer to $200,000. It was a huge investment. Denise and I sat down at the kitchen table with spreadsheets and bank statements to figure out how we'd make it work. That's when Denise told me about the inheritance. Her mother had passed away in 2012, leaving her and her sister each about $95,000 after the estate was settled. Denise said she'd been saving it for Jasmine's education. She suggested we split the costs. She'd contribute from her inheritance, and I'd cover the rest from my salary and savings. It seemed fair. We were a team. We were Jasmine's parents, working together to give her the best start in life. But here's where things get interesting. When we actually sat down to set up the payment plan with Howard's financial aid office in July 2014, Denise suddenly had an emergency work trip to Philadelphia. She asked me to handle the paperwork. She'd transfer her portion to our joint account, and I could make the payments. I agreed. I went to the bursar's office on Georgia Avenue, set up the payment plan, and wrote the first check for $11,880, half of the first year's tuition. I waited for Denise to transfer her portion. A week went by. 2 weeks. When I asked her about it, she said there were complications with the estate account, something about probate delays. She'd get it sorted out. In the meantime, could I cover it? She'd pay me back before the next semester. I trusted my wife. I paid the remaining $11,880, and I paid for the housing, $6,200 for the fall semester at the towers, and the meal plan, $2,400, and the books, $800 from the university bookstore. The fall semester of 2014 cost me $33,160 out of pocket. When I asked Denise about reimbursement in December, she said the estate issue was still being resolved. Her lawyer was handling it. She seemed stressed, so I didn't push. I figured we'd settle accounts eventually. We were married. What's mine was hers and vice versa. Spring semester came. Another $23,360 in tuition, housing, and fees. Summer came and went. Sophomore year arrived. Junior year. Senior year. Every semester, the same pattern. Denise would promise to contribute, something would come up, I'd end up covering everything. In May 2018, when Jasmine graduated with her bachelor's degree in business administration, I'd paid a total of $427,680 to Howard University. Not an estimate, not a rough figure. Exactly $427,680. I know because I kept every single receipt, every canceled check, every bank statement, organized by semester in manila folders in a banker's box in my office. Why did I keep such meticulous records? Honestly, it started as a practical thing. I wanted to track the costs for tax purposes, maybe claim some education credits. But as the years went on and Denise kept promising reimbursement that never came, I started keeping the records for a different reason. I wanted proof. Proof that I'd done what I said I'd do. Proof that I'd kept my promise to Jasmine. Because here's what I need you to understand. I didn't pay for Jasmine's education expecting gratitude. I didn't do it to hold it over her head. I did it because she was my daughter, and that's what fathers do. They invest in their children's futures. They sacrifice. They provide. I'd been doing it since she was 6 years old, and I'd do it again without hesitation. After Howard, Jasmine moved to Atlanta for a job with a marketing firm, making $58,000 a year. Good money for a first job. She rented an apartment in Midtown, started her career, started her adult life. Denise and I were proud. We'd visit her a couple times a year, take her to dinner at the Optimist or Bacchanalia, catch up on her life. But I started noticing something around 2019, about a year after graduation. Jasmine's attitude toward me began to shift. She was more distant on phone calls. When we visited, she seemed impatient, like we were inconveniencing her. If I offered advice about her career or finances, she'd cut me off. "I got it, Thomas," she'd say. "Not Dad anymore. Thomas." I asked Denise if she noticed it. She said Jasmine was just growing up, asserting her independence. That's normal. I accepted that explanation. Kids grow up. They pull away a little. It's natural. I gave her space. In 2021, Jasmine started dating a guy named Marcus Green. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, same industry as Denise. That's actually how they met at some industry conference in Chicago. Marcus was smooth, well-dressed, drove a silver Audi A6. He talked a good game about investments and real estate and building wealth. Denise loved him. She was always saying how Marcus was going places, how he was perfect for Jasmine, how they'd have a great life together. I was more cautious. Something about Marcus felt performative to me, like he was always selling something, even in casual conversation. But I kept my concerns to myself. Jasmine was 28 years old, capable of making her own choices about relationships. In November 2023, Jasmine called to tell us she and Marcus were engaged. The wedding was planned for June 2024 in Atlanta. Denise was over the moon. She immediately started planning, talking about dresses and venues and invitation lists. The wedding itself was going to cost about $45,000. Denise said tradition dictated that the bride's parents pay for the wedding. I agreed to contribute half, $22,500. Denise would pay the other half from her savings. We flew to Atlanta in June for the wedding at the Mesa Mura Gallery in Buckhead. It was a beautiful ceremony, I'll give them that. About 150 guests, gorgeous flowers, excellent catering. Jasmine looked stunning. I walked her down the aisle. She held my arm, but when I looked at her face, there was something distant in her expression, like she was somewhere else entirely. At the reception, during the father-daughter dance, we swayed to Luther Vandross's Dance with My Father. Jasmine was quiet. I tried to make conversation, told her how proud I was of her, how beautiful she looked. She just nodded, gave me a tight smile. When the song ended, she hugged me briefly and moved on to dance with Marcus's father, who'd flown in from Detroit and hadn't seen Jasmine more than twice in her life. That stung, but I told myself I was being sensitive. It was her wedding day. She had a lot on her mind. After the wedding, Jasmine and Marcus bought a house in the Virginia Highland neighborhood of Atlanta, a craftsman bungalow they got for $685,000. Marcus made decent money, and Jasmine had been promoted to senior marketing manager, making about $78,000. So they could afford it with the mortgage rates at the time. Things were quiet for a few months. Then, in September 2024, Denise told me that Jasmine and Marcus were coming to visit for the weekend. They had some things they wanted to discuss. That seemed odd, but I figured maybe they were pregnant and wanted to tell us in person. I was actually excited at the prospect of being a grandfather. They arrived on a Saturday morning. Marcus was wearing designer jeans and a polo shirt. Jasmine was in athleisure wear, looking tense. We all sat in the living room. Denise offered coffee. There was small talk about their drive, about traffic on I-95, about the weather. Then Marcus cleared his throat and said, "Thomas, Denise, we wanted to talk to you about something important. It's about family finances." I felt a small knot form in my stomach, but I kept my expression neutral. "Okay," I said. "What's on your mind?" Jasmine looked at her mother, not at me. "Mom, you've mentioned over the years that you and Thomas got an inheritance when Grandma died. You said it was supposed to be for my education, but that Thomas wanted to use it for other things. We're just wondering what happened to that money." I blinked. That wasn't what Denise had said at all. The inheritance was Denise's alone from her mother. My parents were still alive, retired in South Carolina. I hadn't received any inheritance. I looked at Denise. Her face had gone pale. She glanced at me quickly, then back at Jasmine. Well, honey, it's complicated. There were expenses over the years, and we think Thomas might have mismanaged the funds. Marcus interrupted, his tone professional but accusatory, like he was in a business negotiation. We've been looking at average college costs, and the inheritance should have covered most of Jasmine's education. But from what Jasmine remembers, you both were stressed about money during those years. We just want transparency about where that money went. The knot in my stomach tightened into something cold and hard. I kept my voice calm. I think there might be some confusion here. Denise, do you want to explain? Denise looked trapped. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, Can we not do this right now? This is supposed to be a nice family weekend. Mom, Jasmine's voice was sharper now. We've been planning to have this conversation for months. Marcus and I are thinking about our own financial future, maybe starting a family. If there's money that was supposed to be mine, or if Thomas did something inappropriate with your inheritance, we need to know. I felt something shift inside me, a clarity, a cold, precise understanding of what was happening. My wife had lied to our daughter about the college payments. She'd created a narrative where I was somehow responsible for money that didn't exist or had been misused. And now Jasmine, my daughter who I'd raised and loved and invested nearly $500,000 in, was sitting in my living room, essentially accusing me of theft. I stood up. Excuse me for a moment, I said. Where are you going? Marcus asked, and I heard suspicion in his voice. To get something from my office, I replied. I'll be right back. I walked down the hallway to my home office, closed the door, and stood there for a moment, breathing deeply. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from the sheer weight of what I was about to do. I'd kept these records for 18 years. Part of me hoped I'd never need them. But I'd known, somewhere deep down, that this day might come. I picked up the banker's box from the shelf above my desk. It was heavy, packed with folders. I carried it back to the living room and set it on the coffee table. It landed with a solid thunk. Everyone stared at it. What's that? Jasmine asked. That, I said quietly, is the truth. I opened the box and pulled out the first folder. It was labeled Howard University, Fall 2014. Inside were copies of the tuition bill, the payment receipt, the canceled check from my personal account at M&T Bank, branch on North Charles Street. I laid them on the coffee table in front of Jasmine. Your freshman year, fall semester, I said. Tuition was $11,880. I paid it on August 15th, 2014. Check number 2,847. I pulled out another document. Housing at the Towers, $6,200. Check number 2,851, dated August 18th. Meal plan, $2,400. Check number 2,855. I stacked them neatly. I pulled out the next folder. Spring 2015. Tuition, $11,880. Housing, $6,200. Meal plan, $2,400. More checks, more receipts, all in my name, all from my account. Jasmine was staring at the documents. Marcus had leaned forward, his expression shifting from confident to uncertain. I pulled out folder after folder. Sophomore year, junior year, senior year. Every semester, every payment. All from my personal account, not the joint account Denise and I shared. Not from any inheritance. From my salary as a professor at Morgan State. The coffee table was now covered in paper. A 4-year paper trail of every dollar I'd spent on Jasmine's education. I reached into the box one more time and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a spreadsheet I'd created, totaling every expense. $427,680, I said. That's what I paid for your education, Jasmine. Not tuition alone. Tuition, housing, meal plans, books, fees. I even paid for your laptop, a MacBook Pro you needed for your business classes. $1,500 from the Apple Store on Wisconsin Avenue. I have that receipt too. The room was dead silent. Jasmine's face had gone from confused to shocked. She picked up one of the receipts, examined it, then another. Her hands were trembling. Mom said, she started, then trailed off, looking at Denise. Denise's face was ashen. She was gripping the arm of her chair, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Marcus, to his credit, looked genuinely taken aback. He'd clearly been fed a story, believed it, and was now watching it crumble in real time. I don't understand, he said. Denise, you told Jasmine that you and Thomas split the costs. You said there was an inheritance. There was an inheritance, I interrupted. Denise's mother left her $95,000 in 2012. I never saw a penny of it, and neither did Howard University. I turned to Denise. My wife of 23 years. The woman I built a life with. Where did it go, Denise? She wouldn't meet my eyes. It's complicated, Thomas. Uncomplicated, I said, and my voice was harder now. Our daughter just accused me of mismanaging money that was supposedly hers. I think I deserve an explanation. I think Jasmine deserves an explanation. Denise's eyes were filling with tears. I had some debts, she said quietly. From before we got married, credit cards. I'd been paying them down slowly, but the interest was killing me. When Mama died and left me that money, I used it to pay them off. All $95,000? I asked. There were other things, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Medical bills from when I had the surgery in 2013, and I helped my sister when she was going through her divorce. She needed money for her lawyer. I absorbed this. It was possible. Denise had had a hysterectomy in 2013, and even with insurance, the out-of-pocket costs were significant. Her sister Patricia had gone through a messy divorce around the same time. But $95,000? Why didn't you tell me? I asked. We're married. If you had debts, we could have worked it out together. I was embarrassed, Denise said, and now the tears were falling. I didn't want you to know I'd been so bad with money before we met. I thought I could handle it myself. So instead, you let me pay for everything, I said. For 18 years. And then you told our daughter that I'd mismanaged your inheritance. I never said that exactly, Denise started. Mom, you absolutely did. Jasmine cut in, and her voice was shaking now. You told me last year when we were in Atlanta that you'd wanted to pay for my college, but that Thomas had insisted on using your mother's money for a house, renovations and investments that didn't pan out. You said I should remember that when it came time to plan my future. My jaw tightened. House renovations. Investments that didn't pan out. I'd done some updates to the house over the years, sure, but nothing major. New roof in 2016, $18,000. Kitchen update in 2019, $24,000. All paid from our joint savings, contributed to equally. As for investments, I'd been putting money into a diversified portfolio through Vanguard since my 30s. It was doing fine. I looked at Denise, really looked at her, and I saw something I'd been missing for years. She was a stranger. Or maybe I was the stranger, and I'd just been too busy being a father and a husband to notice. Why would you say that to Jasmine? I asked. Why would you lie about me? Denise didn't answer. She just sat there, crying, and I realized she didn't have a good answer. Or maybe she did, and it was too ugly to say out loud. Jasmine was looking at the papers on the table, picking them up one by one, reading them. You paid for all of this, she said, and it wasn't a question. You paid for everything. I did, I said. Because you're my daughter. Because I wanted you to have opportunities. Because that's what parents do. But Jasmine's voice cracked. I said, you weren't my real father. There it was. The words that had started this whole thing. I'd almost forgotten them in the chaos of the last 20 minutes, but now they came back, sharp and clear. When did you say that? Denise asked, looking confused. Right before you and Marcus got here, I said. We were talking about the visit, and I made some comment about wanting both of her parents there for important conversations. Jasmine informed me that I wasn't her real father. Jasmine looked like she wanted to disappear. I was angry, she said quietly. Marcus and I had been talking about Mom's stories, about how you controlled the finances, and I was angry. Controlled the finances, I repeated. Is that what your mother told you? Jasmine didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. I felt very tired suddenly. I sat back down in my chair. I never controlled anything, Jasmine. Your mother and I had joint accounts. We made decisions together, or at least I thought we did. The only accounts I had solely in my name were my retirement funds and one savings account I kept for emergencies. I paused, then decided I might as well finish this. Actually, that's not entirely true. I have one other account. I opened it in 2012, right after you graduated high school. It's a high-yield savings account at PNC Bank, branch on Light Street. I've been putting money into it every month for the last 12 years. $500 a month, automatically transferred. I could see Jasmine doing the math in her head. 12 years, $500 a month. That was $72,000, give or take, depending on interest. Actually, with compound interest, it's sitting at about $81,000 right now, I said. I was planning to give it to you when you had your first child. A nest egg for my grandchild's future. But I figured you should know about it now, given the circumstances. Marcus let out a breath. Jasmine looked like she'd been punched. Why? She whispered. After paying for college, why would you keep saving for me? Because that's what fathers do, I said simply. We don't stop being fathers when our kids graduate. We don't stop wanting the best for them. But even as I said it, I felt the words ring hollow. Because the truth was, I'd been a father to Jasmine, but she'd never really seen me that way. Not fully. Her mother had been poisoning the well for years, apparently, drip by drip, building a narrative where I was controlling, where I'd mismanaged money, where I wasn't her real father. I need some air, Jasmine said suddenly, standing up. She walked out onto the back deck, leaving the sliding door open behind her. Marcus hesitated, then followed her. That left me alone with Denise. We sat in silence for a long moment. I could hear Jasmine and Marcus talking on the deck, their voices low and urgent. How long have you been lying to her about me? I asked finally. Denise wiped her eyes. I didn't mean for it to get like this. It started small. She'd ask about college costs, and I'd just deflect. Say that we'd handled it together, that finances were complicated. But then she got older, and she'd ask more specific questions. And I didn't want her to know that I'd used my inheritance for my own debts. I didn't want her to think less of me. So you made her think less of me instead, I said. I didn't plan it that way, Denise said, but her voice lacked conviction. When did it start? I pressed. When did you start telling her I'd mismanaged money or controlled finances? Denise was quiet for a long time. Then she said, maybe 2 years ago. She called me upset because she and Marcus were looking at houses, and the mortgage process was stressful. She was venting about Marcus wanting to control their budget, and I said something about how I understood, how I dealt with similar issues in my marriage. It just came out. And then you kept saying it, I said. You kept building on that lie. I didn't think it would matter, Denise said, and now there was a defensive edge to her voice. You and Jasmine were fine. I didn't think she'd confront you about it, but she did, I said. with her fiancé, now husband, backing her up, coming into my house to question my integrity. I stood up again. I felt like I couldn't sit still. What happened to you, Denise? What happened to the woman I married? She didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe she did, but she couldn't say it. Out on the deck, I could see Jasmine had her face in her hands. Marcus had his arm around her. They were having an intense conversation. After a few minutes, they came back inside. Jasmine's eyes were red. She walked over to the coffee table and looked at all the receipts again, as if seeing them for the first time. I need to ask you something, she said to Denise, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Dad pay for my car? I'd forgotten about the car. In 2016, for Jasmine's 20th birthday, we bought her a used Honda Accord, silver, 2014 model with 30,000 miles on it. We'd paid $17,500 from CarMax on Russell Street. It was supposed to be a joint gift from both of us. Denise's face told Jasmine everything she needed to know. He'd paid for that too, Jasmine said, and it wasn't a question. Your mother contributed to the down payment, I said quietly. She gave me $3,000. I paid the remaining $14,500. Jasmine sank down onto the couch. What else? She asked. What else did you pay for that Mom took credit for? I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to itemize every lie, every misattribution. But I also felt like we'd crossed some threshold, and there was no going back now. The truth had to come all the way out, or this wound would never heal. Your spring break trip to Cancun your junior year, I said. $1,500. I paid for it. Your mother told you it was from her Christmas bonus, but her bonus went toward the cruise she and her sister took to the Bahamas that February. Jasmine's eyes widened. The laptop I mentioned earlier. The interview suit you needed from Ann Taylor for your job interview senior year, $300. Your security deposit and first month's rent when you moved to Atlanta, $3,400. I was pulling these from memory, from years of being the one who handled these expenses, and then watched as Denise casually took credit. At the time, I hadn't cared. I figured we were a team, and credit didn't matter. But now, standing in my living room with my daughter looking at me like she'd never really seen me before, I realized that credit did matter. Truth mattered. Stop, Jasmine said. Please stop. I stopped. She looked at her mother. Why? She asked, and her voice broke on the word. Why did you lie to me about him? He's been nothing but good to us. To me. And you made me think. She couldn't finish the sentence. She just shook her head. Denise opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she say? There was no good explanation for what she'd done. No justification that would make sense. Marcus, who'd been quiet this whole time, spoke up. I think Denise and I should talk, he said. Since we're in the same industry. Maybe there's context I'm missing about how pharmaceutical sales compensation works. Bonuses, that kind of thing. It was a diplomatic way of saying he wanted to interrogate Denise without me present. I appreciated that. Marcus was starting to redeem himself in my eyes. Fine, Denise said, standing up. She and Marcus went into the kitchen, closing the door behind them. That left me and Jasmine alone in the living room, surrounded by 18 years of receipts. Jasmine picked up the folder labeled Fall 2014 and opened it. She read through every document, slowly, carefully. Then she picked up Spring 2015, then Fall 2015. She worked her way through all 4 years, not saying a word, just reading. I didn't interrupt her. I sat in my chair and waited. When she finished, she set the last folder down and looked at me. Her eyes were streaming with tears. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, I replied. Yes, I do, she said. I have to say I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For what I said. For believing Mom's stories. For bringing Marcus here to accuse you. For everything. I felt something loosen in my chest. I forgive you, I said, and I meant it. How? She asked. How can you forgive me that easily? Because you're my daughter, I said. And I've loved you since you were 6 years old. That doesn't just go away because you said something hurtful. People make mistakes. Families work through them. But I called you not my real father, she said, and fresh tears spilled over. You're right, I said quietly. I'm not your biological father. Derek Collins is, but I'm the man who raised you. I'm the man who paid for your education and your car and your security deposit. I'm the man who walked you down the aisle. Biology doesn't make a father. Love and commitment and showing up every day, that makes a father. Jasmine was openly sobbing now. She got up from the couch and crossed over to me. I stood, and she threw her arms around me, holding on like she was afraid I'd disappear. I love you, Dad, she said into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I love you. I held my daughter and felt the weight of 18 years of parenting, of sacrifice, of silent investment in her future. It had all been worth it. Even this moment, painful as it was worth it, because we were finally being honest with each other. After a few minutes, Jasmine pulled back. She wiped her eyes. What do I do about Mom? She asked. That's between you and her, I said. But I think she needs to be honest with you about why she lied. And I think you need to decide whether you can trust her going forward. Jasmine nodded. She looked at the kitchen door, behind which Marcus and Denise were still talking. We didn't have to wait long. The kitchen door opened, and Marcus came out first. His expression was serious. Thomas, can I talk to you for a minute? He asked. Outside? I followed him out to the back deck. The afternoon sun was starting to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard. Marcus leaned against the railing. I owe you an apology, he said. I came into your house with assumptions, and I was wrong. I should have asked questions before making accusations. You were operating on information Denise gave you, I said. You didn't know it was false. Still, Marcus said. I should have been more careful. I work in sales. I know people spin stories to make themselves look good. I should have verified before coming at you like that. I appreciated his honesty. What did Denise tell you in there? I asked. Marcus hesitated. I'm not sure I should say. It's between her and Jasmine, really. Fair enough, I said. But Marcus kept talking anyway. She admitted that she's been gambling, he said quietly. Online poker, some sports betting. She said it started a few years ago, just small amounts for fun, but it escalated. She's lost a lot of money. My stomach dropped. Gambling. That explained so much. The financial stress Denise had been showing lately. The way she'd been defensive about checking the bank accounts. The trips to work conferences that seemed to happen more and more frequently. How much has she lost? I asked. She wouldn't give me an exact number, Marcus said. But based on what she implied, I guess at least 50 or 60,000 over the last 3 years. I did some quick mental math. Denise made about $95,000 a year in sales, with bonuses pushing her closer to $115,000 in good years. If she'd been gambling away significant portions of that, while I'd been covering household expenses from my $87,000 professor's salary. Does Jasmine know? I asked. Not yet, Marcus said. Denise asked me to let her tell Jasmine herself. I agreed, but I told her she had 24 hours, or I'd tell Jasmine myself. I nodded. That seemed fair. There's something else, Marcus said. Denise mentioned that she's been borrowing from your joint savings. She said you hadn't noticed because you don't check that account often. My blood went cold. We had a savings account at M&T Bank, the same branch where I had my checking account. It was supposed to have about $45,000 in it. Money we'd been saving for eventual retirement travel, maybe a vacation home down the line. I checked it maybe once a quarter, just to make sure the interest was accruing properly. How much did she take? I asked. She said about 30,000, Marcus replied. Over the past 18 months, $30,000. Gone. Gambled away while I've been dutifully depositing my paycheck and paying our bills and maintaining our life. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. Anger wouldn't help right now. I needed to think clearly. Thank you for telling me, I said to Marcus. I'm sorry, man, he said. This is a mess. Yeah, I agreed. It is. We went back inside. Denise was sitting on the couch, looking small and defeated. Jasmine was standing by the window, her arms crossed. I walked over to Denise. We need to talk, I said. Privately. She nodded and followed me to our bedroom. I closed the door behind us. Marcus told me about the gambling, I said without preamble. Denise's face crumpled. Thomas, I'm so sorry. I tried to stop. I kept thinking I could win it back, that I could fix it before you noticed. How much is left in our joint savings? I interrupted. She couldn't look at me. About 15,000, she whispered. So she'd taken 30,000, just like Marcus said. Maybe more. I sat down on the edge of the bed, feeling suddenly exhausted. I think you need help, I said. Professional help. Gambling addiction is real, and you can't fight it alone. I know, she said. I'll get help, I promise. I'll go to Gamblers Anonymous. I'll see a therapist. Whatever you want. It's not about what I want, I said. It's about what you need. And what our family needs. Are you going to leave me? She asked, and her voice was small, scared. I thought about it. Really thought about it. We'd been married for 23 years. We had a life together, a home, shared history. But she'd lied to me, to our daughter. She'd stolen from our savings. She'd created a false narrative that painted me as controlling and financially irresponsible. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I need you to be honest with Jasmine. Tell her about the gambling. Tell her about the money you took. Tell her why you lied. And then we'll figure out what comes next. Denise nodded, tears streaming down her face. We went back to the living room. Jasmine and Marcus were sitting together on the couch, holding hands. They looked up when we entered. Jasmine, Denise said, her voice shaking. I need to tell you something. I need to tell you the truth about everything. And she did. She told Jasmine about the gambling, about the money she'd lost, about the lies she'd told to cover it up. She told her about the inheritance she'd used to pay off old debts. She told her about taking money from the joint savings account. She laid it all out, ugly and raw and honest for maybe the first time in years. Jasmine listened, her face a mask of shock and hurt and confusion. When Denise finished, there was a long silence. I don't know who you are, Jasmine said finally. I thought I knew you, but I don't. I'm still your mother, Denise said desperately. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. You made me doubt the one person who's been there for me my entire life, Jasmine said, her voice hard. You made me think Dad was the problem when he was the only one holding this family together. She stood up. Marcus and I are leaving. We're going to get a hotel for the night. I need some time to process all of this. Jasmine, please, Denise started. No, Jasmine cut her off. I can't be here right now. I can't look at you right now. She walked over to me. Dad, can we have breakfast tomorrow? Just the two of us? Of course, I said. Wherever you want. She hugged me again, quick and tight. Then she and Marcus gathered their things and left. The house felt very empty after they were gone. Denise and I stood in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of my 18 years of fatherhood and the wreckage of her 18 years of lies. What do we do now? She asked. Now, I said, you make an appointment with a therapist who specializes in addiction, and you call Gamblers Anonymous. And you figure out how you're going to rebuild trust with our daughter and with me. And us? She asked. Are we going to be okay? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and I didn't have an answer. I don't know, I said. But I know this. I'm not the villain in this story. I'm not the one who needs to prove myself. That's on you now. The next morning, I met Jasmine at Miss Shirley's Cafe in Roland Park, the same place we'd celebrated when she passed her driving test all those years ago. We sat in a booth by the window, ordered coffee, and talked for 2 hours. She apologized again. I forgave her again. We talked about her mother, about the future, about what family meant when trust had been broken. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was a real one. I want you to have the money in that PNC account, I said. I want you to have it now, not when you have kids. Use it for whatever you need. Pay down your mortgage, invest it, take a vacation. It's yours. Jasmine shook her head. I don't deserve it. Not after what I said to you. It's not about deserving, I said. It's about love, and I love you. That money is yours because I'm your father, and fathers take care of their children. That doesn't change. She started crying again, right there in the restaurant. I don't know how to make this up to you, she said. You don't have to make it up to me, I replied. Just be honest with me from now on. And maybe check your mother's stories before you accept them as truth. She laughed through her tears. That's fair. We finished our breakfast, and I walked her out to her car. Marcus was waiting, and he shook my hand, man to man, respect in his eyes. Thank you for how you handled yesterday, he said. A lot of men would have lost their temper. You kept your dignity. I've learned over 62 years that patience defeats arrogance, I said, and that the truth always comes out eventually. Jasmine hugged me one more time before they drove back to Atlanta. I went home to my empty house, to my wife who was sleeping off her shame in our bedroom, to the banker's box full of receipts still sitting on the coffee table. I put the receipts away, back into the box, back onto the shelf in my office. Evidence preserved, just in case I ever needed it again. Then I sat at my desk and thought about what came next. Denise did go to therapy. She did join Gamblers Anonymous. She did start the work of recovering from her addiction and rebuilding trust. It was slow, painful work. Some days I thought we'd make it. Other days I wasn't sure. Jasmine and I talked every week. Our relationship slowly healed, stronger now for having been tested and found genuine. She started calling me Dad again without hesitation. She sent me articles about engineering innovations, remembered my birthday, invited me to visit Atlanta. The money in the PNC account did go to her, transferred in October 2024. She and Marcus used it to pay down their mortgage and set up a college fund for the children they were planning to have. Jasmine sent me a thank you card with a photo of her and Marcus in front of their house. On the back, she'd written, "Because of you, I know what a real father looks like. Thank you for never giving up on me." I keep that photo on my desk at the university, right next to a picture of Jasmine in her Howard graduation cap and gown. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Being a parent isn't about biology. It's not about credit or recognition. It's about showing up day after day, year after year, and doing the work of loving someone even when it's hard, even when it's thankless, even when they can't see what you're sacrificing for them. I paid $427,680 for Jasmine's education. I saved another $81,000 for her future. I spent 18 years being her father in every way that mattered. And when she questioned that, when she denied that relationship, I didn't get angry. I didn't lash out. I simply showed her the receipts. The truth. Because karma isn't about revenge. It's not about making people pay for their mistakes. Karma is just a natural consequence of actions. My wife lied and stole and gambled, and the consequence was broken trust and a fractured family that she now has to work to repair. Jasmine believed those lies and spoke words she didn't mean, and the consequence was guilt and regret and a hard lesson about verifying the truth. And me? I invested in my daughter's future, loved her unconditionally, and maintained my dignity even when I was being accused. The consequence of that is a relationship with my daughter that's real, honest, and built on a foundation of proven commitment. That's what matters in the end. Not the money. Not the credit. Not even the apologies, though those matter too. What matters is that when Jasmine looks back on her life, she know exactly who was there for her. She know who paid for her education, who walked her down the aisle, who never stopped being her father, even when she said he wasn't. She know because I kept the receipts, all of them. I'm Thomas Edward Richardson. I'm 58 years old, a professor of mechanical engineering at Morgan State University, and a father to a daughter who isn't mine by blood, but is mine in every other way that matters. And that's the truth I'll take with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. If you've ever felt unappreciated for your sacrifices, know that the truth always comes to light eventually. Keep your receipts, literal or metaphorical. Keep your dignity. Keep showing up. If this story resonated with you, please leave a comment. Tell me about your own experiences with family, with trust, with the hard work of being a parent or a child trying to navigate complicated relationships. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this one. And most importantly, go call someone who's been there for you and let them know you see them. You appreciate them. You recognize their sacrifice. Because that's what we all want in the end. To be seen, to be known, to have our truth acknowledged. Take care of yourselves out there.